Welcome back to the 0 Hour. It is recap show day. Tim Loy joined by my man Jeff Hobbs. We got Dylan McCarthy in the house too today, y'all. We're going to be recapping and reacting to the event that was Aries Fight Series 8. It went down this past Friday night, June the 3rd, from the world famous Cotton Eye Joe. 13 bouts went down, and we had some quick knockouts, man. We had some record set gentlemen on this one, and definitely a few surprises along the way as well. Excited to dive into it, Jeff. The first stop of 3 in the month of June is now in the books. We're officially in the deep end of it.
Yeah, and I feel every bit of it right now. And it's only been event number 1. Yeah, I'm exhausted, man. But it is what it is. We knew what we signed up for, so it's time to rock and roll. We'll be recording this show on Sunday, and I'll be right back ready for travel. Getting things ready for travel tomorrow.
At the very least, for you watchers out there in the internet lands, we're going to have a lot of content for you guys over the month, as we're going to be able to drop the Aries 8 bouts here on YouTube this week, and we'll start getting those up. So we need you guys to subscribe, like
1K, Tim, 1K, buddy.
Yeah.
1K. We hit 1K.
That's right. We got 1,000. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
Let's go.
We got 1,000. We got 1,000 subscribers. So thanks to you guys for doing that for us. That's huge. That allows us to bring you guys live content now, whereas in the past we've only been able to record things and then show it to you afterwards. So we can go live. We can do live prelims. We can have live 0 hour shows where you guys can chime into the chat and we can interact, and that'll be a lot of fun. Dylan, your second time in the seat for commentary this time. A little bit more heads up on it this time. You're able to prepare a bit more before we dive into any specifics. Your overall take on Aries 8.
Well, it's always great anytime I can get myself with a microphone in front of me and people willing to let me talk. That being said, Aries 8 was awesome. I was joined by Josh in Houston. We had a wide variety of contests. It was a good, lively crowd. There was a lot of energy. It felt like things built. We saw some amazing stoppages, a couple of really close fights that came down to very, very tight decisions. So a little bit of everything, and I was just thrilled to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to being a part of more events here as the summer rolls on.
Let's dive into it real quick before we get into it. A reminder that this upcoming Saturday is Aries 9 from Camp Jordan Arena in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Big Pro-Am show, so a lot of content coming your way this week. We'll have odds up for the pro bouts midweek, I'm guessing. So we should have our man Cody Sapnick joining us for an odds breakdown here midweek. Watch for that here on the channel. And then every day we should be dropping new fights. I think the main event from Aries 6 should drop tomorrow. That's that big Trevor Peek knockout over Warren Smith. Make sure you check that out. And tickets are already on sale for the big Aries Amp show, where you can see Trevor Peek take on Kama Worthy, as well as Robbie Ring take on Jacob Kilmer. You get your early bird tickets right now at fightertickswithanx.com. They've only got, Jeff, about another 3-4 days before the price goes up on those.
Yeah, Friday. So it kind of just corresponds right with Aries 9 weigh-ins. So you've got just a few more days to grab some of that early bird special, a little discounted price there. Mm-hmm. Big show. So you want to grab those premium seats now at a little cheaper price before the public starts seeing it. You guys, your Trevor Peek fans, your Robbie Rings, Kama Worthies, you guys got to head up because you already know your bouts are on there. So This is your chance for you 4 fan bases to jump on those tickets quick.
And tickets are moving.
How awesome are those 2 fights?
Oh, they're awesome. They really are. It's
2 great fights.
We've had tickets on sale for 3 days, and they are moving pretty quickly already for us to have only announced 2 fights. And I can assure you guys, this card's only going to get bigger and better. There's a lot more good shit coming that will make this well worth your hard-earned dollar. Let's get into it, guys. Aries 8, the prelims kicked us off. We had 3 youth bouts. Starting off with our first juniors modified MMA bout we've had on an actual proper Aries show. It was Brandon Burkhart of Josh Cates' Team Chaos with a unanimous decision victory over Devin Emerson of NKI. It was 30-27, 30-27, 29-28. They may have given Emerson that last round potentially on one of those cards, I'm guessing. The takedowns from Burkhart, for the most part, told the story of this one. No head strikes in the modified youth MMA, so it's really tough to get a finish out there, but the positional control by Burkhart was definitely the deciding factor, I think, here. He moves to 2-1. That was the first modified MMA bout for Emerson, but he was 3-0 kickboxing coming into this. So both guys 17 years old. I'm guessing we're going to get to see them in the small gloves in full MMA rules pretty soon, I'm guessing. Both these guys will have a nice little leg up on their competition, already having a good amount of experience in there before they turned 18. But we'll go to we'll start off with you, Dylan. Your thoughts on this modified MMA bout? Burkhart had some size. It looked like on Emerson coming up a little bit in weight. Typically, he's fighting more around that 140 range. All the same, a lot of good experience for both of these guys, getting a good 9 minutes of cage time before they're 18.
Yeah, Brandon Burkhart, as far as control time and grappling goes, was pretty masterful. I made the comment, sometimes when you see a guy who is a little shorter than his opponent, it'll give him a lower center of gravity, and he kind of takes advantage in the grappling theater. But Brandon Burkhart was very, very good at grapevining the legs and maintaining control. And it looked like for the first 2 rounds that he pretty much didn't have anything coming back at him that he couldn't handle. There was a brief sweep in the 3rd round where Devin Emerson got on top, and you could tell that he was wishing the modified rules were not in effect. He had been controlled for 2 rounds, and he would have loved to have done some damage to the head. But, he was undefeated in kickboxing, like you mentioned, and this is probably just a learning experience for him. Both guys were in great shape. Brandon Burkhart, coached by broadcast colleague Josh Cate there. That was a good showing of Josh's expertise and teaching that he implemented. So a great win for Brandon, definitely.
Brandon's going to be a handful. I imagine at 145, which is where he will end up with this being a 150 catch weight bout and him not really cutting weight. He's going to be a pretty tall dude at 145. He'll be solid. Second bout of the night, it was K1 rules. Once again, back to the juniors, it was Hannah Tucker of Ben Kikers United Karate Studios putting her undefeated record on the line, 2-0. She took on the likewise undefeated Emily Four out of Ring Combat Sports. Man, this is a fun one. As expected, in the preview, and we always say Hannah Tucker is just nonstop. She doesn't stop coming forward, and I thought that Four handled it pretty well. It was just more or less the volume of Hannah was kind of outweighed. It seemed like Emily would take several shots and she'd give a good right hand back that was pretty solid. But just the accumulation of volume over the 3 rounds, a little bit too much to overcome. It was 30-27 across the board. All 3 judges gave all the rounds to Hannah Tucker. She moves to 3-0. Man, she's getting more confident every time out there, too, I must say. She's going to be solid. I'm excited to see when she becomes an adult. We've got another Tyler Jones on our hands here, Jeff. And then at the same time for Miss Emily Ford, a good showing for her. From what I've gathered, she is really more MMA oriented. So she was a little out of her comfort zone with only the striking here, but all the same, a lot of good experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling Hannah Tucker cheat code, man, because it reminds me of I used to play my buddy in old Fight Night on the PlayStation, man. When you would get those punches going and hitting the button quick enough, and they couldn't do anything with it, and they'd get pissed and throw the controller because once you get them in that groove, they can't get out of it. So Hannah cheat code Tucker.
I like it.
Yeah, these bouts, it's all about volume, and Hannah Tucker has only one speed. And it just does not allow for the opponent to even take a breath for a second. So, like you said, Hannah Tucker, little by little, we think about when she came in, 0-0 debut to where she is now. Character's coming out a little bit more too, and she's getting a little more comfortable being around everybody, and not the nerves aren't there like they were that first introduction we had with her. So she's definitely loosening up, which could be a scary thing as we go forward, as she's not as uptight now and she's way more loose. But Emily Ford looked good. We know what gym she comes from, so we know that there is definite skill there. So hearing that she's kind of more focused on the MMA realm, it makes you really excited about what she could do as she gets older and grows.
Final prelim bout. This one, ended up getting fight of the night honors. It was awesome. Without a doubt, my favorite fight of the night. It was quite the showing for both of these youngins. 85-pound juniors Muay Thai fight. It was an intergender match, if you will. It's about the limit of like the age and size that we can get away with doing like intergender. But this actually was a very, very close matchup, as it was James Garrett representing DC Combat over in Murphy, North Carolina, making his debut against Maya Milton from NKI. A very, very hard-fought 3 rounds. It ended up being a unanimous decision by the judges, as it was 29-28 across the board on all 3 cards, 2-1 for James Garrett, who took unanimous decision win. Myself, personally, I had Miss Maya Milton with this one. I thought that she took the first 2 rounds, and I thought young James came on very well in the 3rd round, as it looked like Miss Milton was beginning to get a little winded towards the 3rd after throwing a whole lot of volume in the first 2 rounds. There was a moment in the 2nd round where the referee did not call a body shot knockdown, which in my opinion would have made all the difference in this fight. At the very least, I think we would have come out with a draw, which I don't think anybody would have had a problem with that either, honestly. But he did not call it a knockdown, so you can't, the judges aren't supposed to score in a knockdown. So as far as that goes, the judges saw it 2-1, and James gets the win. A great post-fight speech, though, from Miss Maya Milton. I thought that really kind of put things in perspective for everyone. If anyone that was angry about the bout, go back and watch that. Her post-fight speech is great. Both these young kids really put on a show, had the crowd, it was early in the night, so the crowd was still early arriving, but they really got them up out of their seats, really got them cheering. And I would love to have both these kids back. They tell me that Maya's a wrestler, really, so she's one that we may see doing some modified MMA down the road, as she's got a wrestling background. And shout out to young James. He did a good job of utilizing that clinch and throwing those knees, which in my opinion was his best offense in this fight. I'd actually like to get both of y'all's take on this one. Jeff, I'll go to you first. Your take on this juniors bout.
Yeah, there's no doubt Maya Milton was the crowd favorite. She brought a nice large contingency and got herself a nice little commission check this weekend.
Yeah.
For all the support that she had there. I thought she looked good in the first round. I felt that James came on a little sooner than you felt, Tim. I felt in the 2nd round is when he really started, finding that clinch in the knees. But like you said, the key point here was, regardless of what kind of success he found in the 2nd round, had that knee. You got to talk about post-fight interviews. Let's not forget James Garrett referring to his solar plexus.
Solar plexus.
But regardless of what I thought the momentum of round 2 was going, had that been called a knockdown right there, you've got an automatic 10-8, which would have granted, if any of those judges, I didn't see specifically which judges scored which bouts what way, but if they had it Maya with round 1 and then given that 10-8 in round 2, then it wouldn't have mattered what happened the rest of the way from that point on. So, so I think Maya, if I would have been judging round 1, I would have given round 1 to Maya. And then with that 10-8, had it happened, I don't think there's any way she could have really lost it had he not finished her. And what round was it too, though, guys, that she took that inadvertent knee to the face too?
Yeah, that was also, I think,
round
maybe
2
in the
as well.
round 2.
That was it. Yeah, that was at the end of the 2nd round. It was like 10 seconds left in the 2nd round, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a point could have been deducted for that as well, in hindsight. So, tough one. But at the end of the day, hey, this is like the early stages for these kids. This is great experience. No one's going to remember who won or lost this one, I don't think.
No, absolutely. And that's what Miss Milton said. Neither one of us were losers. We're both winners in here today. And let's not to mention, after that knee to the face, the traditional and all-inspiring slow clap, went over the crowd. And got Maya back zoned into this fight to where she was able to continue. So the slow clap, comes through again.
Dylan, your take.
I pretty much agree with you, gentlemen. I know my broadcast colleagues were a little more stunned than I was at the decision. I think just with how many fights I've wagered on and lost on these greasy decisions over the years, I've gotten used to seeing what I'm not ready to see. Right. But that being said, the worst part about that not being ruled a knockdown was that young Garrett there was down for probably about 25 seconds to recover for what was ruled an illegal blow, but what we now know was a legitimate body shot. And I don't know that he would have been able to get up in time, and it probably was going to be a second round stoppage for Maya Milton. And can you imagine how loud the building would have got if that would have been the case? But I don't think it's the worst decision ever. There was a lot of highly contested exchanges. I think James Garrett landed the devastating knees and just body work in the clinch. And I think Maya Milton, her offense was more predicated around the distance. Like, she would lead off everything with just a side kick to the body and then kind of flow from there. So it's not the worst decision I've ever seen. And do I think there was a mistake? Yes, but just the maturity beyond her years already for Maya Milton. That was an awesome post-fight interview, and I'm excited to see the next time either one of these two decide to get in there and have a contest.
Jumping into the undercard, bout number 4 here. Now we've got the adults from here on out. MMA at 160 pounds. It was Kyle Frankenfield of Ring Combat Sports with a first-round submission victory over John Colson out of Team Elevate in Marion, Virginia. Kyle Frankenfield moves to 2-1 after his 1 minute and 14-second guillotine in the first round. John Colson drops to 0-3. Dylan, a pretty lively minute and 14 seconds we got here. Colson was really throwing for the fences here, and he was throwing hard, man. He's he landed a couple pretty good ones. I told him afterwards, like, I like your style, dude. You go for it. Don't sleep on this guy at 0-3. He's dangerous. It's just he overcommitted on one of the final ones that he ended up throwing. Kind of got himself spun around where it was a lot closer than he probably wanted to be to Kyle. Kyle able to get a hold of him, snack up that guillotine choke there, and move to 2-1 for Ring Combat.
Yeah, Colson, he really loads up that right hand, and if it lands, it could punch through several brick walls. But if it misses, he's left kind of overextended on it, vulnerable to counterattacks. Frankenfield, I feel like they each had 2 fights coming in, I believe. Or Frankenfield might have had one more.
Frankenfield was 1-1, and Colson was 0-2.
Yeah, and Frankenfield had just fought, I believe, a little over a month ago against somebody who was on the card a little bit later, who proved to be a pretty, very high strength of difficulty on that fight. Mm-hmm. I would love to see John Colson fight again. I definitely think he could knock somebody out the way he's throwing. If that lands, it's going to be hard for anybody to really deal with it. But good. Kyle Frankenfield was subbed in that last fight against Zayn Martin, so for him to rebound and get a submission of his own shows good improvement, and he's young enough to where he's somebody to watch out for.
Some good size on both of those guys at lightweight, I thought, too. I think those were two, looked like welterweights, really, especially amateur welterweights. Moving on, bout number 5, another MMA bout, 165-pound catchweight. Catchweight is the name of the game on this card.
Right, there's a recipe.
Clint Odom of Outlook MMA, Lance Patrick's new team out there in Nashville. He gets the win. Round 1, TKO, 2 minutes, 14 seconds in over Dan Garrett out of DC Combat. Clint moves ahead of the 500 line now at 3-2. Dan Garrett goes to 500 now at 2-2. Jeff, we'll get your take on this one. Odom was fired up, man. He was intense, and got Outlook's night off to a very nice start here with the TKO over the tough vet Dan Garrett.
Yeah, he loves this shit, man. He was on 10 the whole night. Clint Odom though took a shot early and got split. Yeah, he took a nice shot. Got lumped over that eye and got cut and took a nasty little cut there. But knowing Clint from his previous fights, we knew he was going to try to get this thing to the ground. And GNP it. Dan Garrett is tough as always. Old man River never gives up on a fight. He just met a guy, Friday night that was just a little more determined to get this thing to the ground. And Clint Odom he grapples real heavy, man. Once he gets on top, and he knows how to put that weight on you and how to be heavier than the scales show. Clint Odom to me is again just a silent. Well, he's not silent, but when you look at his record, it's an unassuming quality to his game, to his fight game. And I think I'd like to know though, with this being a catch, was it Odom that asked or requested the catch? Okay,
Yeah,
so
Odom needed the 65. Dan was okay with anything from 55 to 65, but from what I recall, Odom still came in under. I think he was like 62 or 63. So I
right,
definitely would imagine that 155 is going to be his next
55.
stop.
So
I would think that it should be.
yeah, absolutely. So it'd be interesting if he can go ahead and the next time maybe he wants to do some business, get down into that legit lightweight division with some of the guys that we've got active. That would, I think he could produce some really, really fun fights at that weight class.
No doubt. Moving on now, we are back to the Muay Thai action, bout number 6, 142 pounds, same day weigh-in, might I add. It was David West out of Black Eye Athletics. First time that we've hosted them. They were a pleasure to have. No issues there. That's always nice. No news is good news. So shout out to Coach Brian Keith out of Black Eye Athletics for bringing David West up. He was a very traditional Muay Thai fighter. He got the win over NKI's Victor Vorgar, second round TKO at 2 minutes technically as the round had ended. However, Mr. Vorgar unable to answer the bell to begin the third round, so it would be called a round 2 TKO at 2 minutes. Fight that I thought Vorgar won the first round. I thought Vorgar looked like $1 million in the first round. He's really landing. That guy's put together. He's got a lot of power, a lot of quickness. Really kind of piecing up David West for the early part of the first round. David started to come on towards the end of the first round. Second round, the gas tank of Vorgar starting to sap a little bit, but then the body work of David West even doing more to that gas tank, I think, and possibly his ribs, from what I could gather, as he was holding his side, wasn't able to come out for the third round after some tough knees to the body, some kicks to the body, punches to the body. It seemed like West was really focused on drawing that fight out and making Vorgar get into deep waters, and it worked. Dylan, your take.
Sometimes in combat sports, the guy who has the best physique in the world just runs out of oxygen to get to those muscles. And Victor Vorgar looked like $1 million. His jab was super quick, and he, in the first round, looked like there wasn't a guy who could beat him. Like he really looked awesome. But broadcast colleague Josh Cate noticed that after round 1, he was on the stool and the mouth was open, and he was just, everything, all that lactic acid had built up, and his hands probably felt like boulders because it was a different guy who came out in the second round. And David West was slow and steady, stayed the course. In the first round, Vorgar had gotten several sweeps, like explosive, big sweeps that just slammed West to the ground. And then I feel like right at the end of the first, David West had been swept 4 times and got a sweep of his own. And then I think he swept Vorgar 2 times to start the second round. And
that
he
really
was
saps the gas tank too.
He was leaning on Vorgar a lot, and he had a little bit of height, so he was making him carry that body weight. And after a little bit of body work and the fact that he was already gassed, there's the expression that fatigue makes cowards of us all, and not that anything was cowardly because it was a great 2 rounds of action. I just think he had suffered some damage to the body and he had nothing left to give. So that happens sometimes. Props to David West. And if Victor Vorgar were to get the cardio issue shored up, he's going to be a problem for anybody who wants to fight him because he looked great in that first round.
He did. And, earlier in the day, we'd had a little bit of a, I guess we'll just call it a tiff of sorts. There was, Vorgar was not happy with having a late change of opponent, not happy with having to weigh in the same day. And that's when
I didn't know this.
There was, it certainly wasn't, they were aware of this a week out easily. It wasn't like it was just sprung on them. But at that point, I started thinking like the plan for this guy to draw him into late waters is probably a very good plan, because my conversation with him and his coach kept going back to, you remember the last time that I had to do a late weight cut and weigh in late, I gassed, and one might think maybe that was in the back of his mind the whole time. Like, man, I'm going to gas. I'm going to gas.
Well,
and that just kind of manifested almost, So it
self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost what it felt like, honestly. And like you said, though, first round, like he looked as good as anybody out there for the first round. Like,
he's awesome.
All the rounds, it's gonna be very hard to beat.
Well, I think the tell was that sweep that West had in that first round. I took notice and watched Cutman. He stayed on the ground, when the round was over. And Cutman Mark Laws went over to try to assist him, and he just get away and shun him away. and did not want any assistance getting up. And it took a second for his corner, to be like, get up and get
Yeah.
on the stool. So right then was that click, like, it almost felt like he was going to be okay just going ahead and sitting down there and being done with it.
Bout number 9, we are. No, I'm sorry, guys. Bout number 7 here. This is bout number 7. MMA, 190 pounds. It was another catchweight bout. Chris Moore making his debut out of Ring Combat Sports gets a quick submission. First round, guillotine choke, 40 seconds in over Team Legion's Sean Shepardini. Both these guys great to work with. Of course, that 185 division can always use more and more talent. Chris Moore now 1-0. Jeff, your take on this? It looked like we may have had like a foot injury of sorts earlier in this fight. That I'm not saying that led to the submission, but I think it certainly made it tough for Sean to defend himself in that guillotine without being able to really be on with that one foot just essentially crumpling underneath him.
Yeah, not much to really say about the fight when only 40 seconds long. They believe it came off of just an elbow, a kick, kick that hit an elbow. While I don't think it had much to do with the guillotine, it could have a lot to do with it getting to the ground to get in that guillotine because he just kind of crumpled. But it was just odd because we didn't notice it, we didn't see it, we didn't recognize any indication from Shefadini that there was anything wrong. But it was when the fight was over and he went to stand up,
you could see it.
He fell back down, and then we just didn't did he roll his ankle standing up? We didn't know. So it wasn't until later we found that it was something that happened during the fight. But great win for Chris Moore and his team at Ring Combat. Again, the thing about Ring Combat is, they had losses before this, but win or lose, the attitude from that team and the graciousness that they lose with to their opponents and the promotion and not just congratulating the other guy when they lose, but letting them know what a good job they did, and they're just as gracious in their celebration and win. So so hats off to Chris Moore, and I expect big things from him. But like you said, Tim, both of these guys were so good to work with and so easy to work with. Shefadini was so nice on weigh-in day and polite, and definitely enjoyed him being there and being a part of this.
Bout number 8, our final undercard bout, a female Muay Thai fight, our first ever adult female Muay Thai fight. This is 175 pounds. It was Ashley Brim out of Lance Patrick's Outlook MMA, defeating Sydney Ayler out of NKI. A split decision win on this one. It was, and the cards were everywhere. We had one judge that went 30-27 for Brim. We had another judge that went 30-27 for Ayler, and then the deciding judge 29-28 for Brim. A split decision win for her, moves her to 2-1. Moves Ayler down to 1-1. I enjoy working with both of these ladies. I'd love to have them back at any time. They're difficult to match at their weight class, but as each girl continues to trim down a little bit more and more, I think there'll be more and more options for them. Both very skilled, out of very good teams. The Ayler side was not happy with this decision. 30-27, I thought was fairly egregious. Either way, you went 29-28 is okay with me. After rewatching the fight a little bit more closely, I thought that Ayler probably took the first round with the harder blows, and kind of controlling the middle. She really controlled the middle all the rounds, to tell you the truth. But I will say Brim started landing at a higher clip in the second and third rounds as Ayler's production started to dip a little bit. So after rewatching it, I don't have a problem with Ashley Brim getting this win. I think 29-28 is a little more appropriate than 30-27. And even though it would not have changed the outcome of the fight, I just think the way that the teams walk away from it when they hear a 30-27, even if it doesn't go their way, versus 29-28, even though it doesn't really matter, I think it kind of does still matter to them to hear, well, fuck, I didn't win any rounds at all. Fuck. I'll get both your takes on this one since it was close. Jeff, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think like you said, I mean, we want it to not matter because the right outcome happened, but the fact of the matter is it does matter to them because like you said, While again, whether it's Dana White talking or whether it's us talking, they'll tell you all the time, like, we're not judging these fights. The promotion is not judging the fights. So we definitely understand from the corner and the coaches, it's a trust issue to them. Like, well, how can I trust fighting and I'm not going to get screwed? You're telling me I didn't win any round. Not just that we're arguing whether I won the fight or not. You're telling me I didn't win a round, and they fully thought that they did. And I'm like you. I got asked all night during, after the show and writing checks. What'd you think about that one? What'd you think about that one? And the answer was the same as yours. I think 30-27 either way is wrong. It's wrong. And would gladly tell all three judges that I think 30-27 either way is wrong. 29-28, I also feel is appropriate. And I think even the 29-28 split possibly going the other way, I think a judge could give their argument for that. I wouldn't have I would have scored at 29-28 Brim, but if this was a debate team and you told me I had to argue 29-28 Ayler, I could give you a good argument.
You could, yeah. It comes down to whether, do you like that holding to the middle, coming forward, landing a lower volume versus the person that is circling out and landing at a higher clip, but still kind of backing up. So I can see both sides.
Yeah, popping the jab, and that you could tell that was going to be what the fight was from the get go. Ayler was throwing less, but throwing harder, and Brim was being more precise and popping the jab and racking up points. So it was just, what's your style? What do you weigh more on? But 30-27, I think was, like I said, a little egregious on both sides. But I guess at the end of the day, thank goodness, the result. I guess in our opinion, the Ayler camp wouldn't say thank God the result came out the way it did, but I think it was fair result. But it doesn't help that trust issue of hoping that the judges, see it correctly.
And this is kind of one of those. And this one, and you go back even to the Maya Milton James Garrett fight. Those are the hometown guys that came out on the short end of that. So any concept or talk of there being like home, I went and got hosed at the hometown, person, to the hometown person. I think that is without any basis at this point.
Oh, this was a blue corner night Friday night.
Yeah.
It was a blue corner night.
Yeah.
Dylan, your take on this one?
The gentleman I called the show with, Josh and Houston, they were surprised. I know my broadcast colleagues thought that Sydney had won. And truthfully, if we talk about the most effective technique in the fight, it was the right hand of Sydney Ayler in the first round. She was snapping back Ashley Brim's head. Pretty good. Anytime she landed, there was some definite power on it. I don't think 30-27 was realistic as to what we saw transpire, but I could see the case for Sydney thinking that she won. The third round, if I'm remembering correctly, I just felt like not a lot happened. Not a lot happened in the third. They'd slowed down a little bit.
Both were starting to huff a little bit.
Yeah, and I know there were some weight cut issues with Sydney Ayler.
I was about to say,
truthfully, I'd like to see.
We can't bypass that. We can't bypass that point.
Yeah,
no, and that should be
weakness there for Ayler's end. And Jeff and I were sitting there thinking, it's like, man, we always think about this shit too late in the game. We need to like put this on our itinerary so it's like in print. But these weight cut issues, we could have probably just skipped all the reweigh stuff and just taken a point and everybody been happy. And that, in my opinion, just taking a point on these amateur fights at the very least, taking a point for the weight cut and just say, hey, that is your what do you call it?
That's your penalty.
13 pounds might be a point and a half.
Yeah, you're paying your penance at this point, and so like paying part of your purse.
Yeah. I would love to see, and only because I know Ashley Brim in the preview had supposedly had a really hard time getting somebody to step in there with her. Run this one back, there's a little controversy. I think it was a good fight. Yeah, I think it was a good fight, and this was our first women's Muay Thai contest for amateur at that weight class. Let's see it again, I mean, why not? Why not? That was my thought.
I wouldn't mind seeing that ran back in Nashville And even in MMA, if both are working,
let's go.
I don't know. I don't even know that both are even have that as a goal. But do it in Nashville
Cool.
next time, and we know it'll deliver. And that might be a fun one to put on at the fair or something.
Some fantasy booking right there. I don't know. Fantasy booking.
All right, on to the main card now. The final 5 fights of the night. One would think would be the more drawn out fights, but man, we had a lot of quick finishes. Record-setting finishes at that. Let's jump into it. Bout number 9 was an actual lightweight bout, I believe. It was Corey Brewster of technically independent for this one. He didn't, we talked about it on the preview show. He did not fit the training criteria of Greg Ring and Kim Ring to actually represent the gym. However, Greg did come out and corner him in this one. As he was able to get the first round TKO only 12 seconds in over Corey the Joker Henson, making his debut. We talked to him, last week on the show here. Had an interview with him. Really, really sweetheart of a fella. And just to me, Brewster just kind of came out and got after it, whereas Henson seemed a bit too relaxed. And I told Corey Henson this after the fight myself. He's obviously disappointed. Still took it pretty well. But I was like, hey, man, when we're talking about guys with 0 or 1 fights in the amateurs, like you can only imagine that there's going to be a franticness in that opening volley there. And Corey Brewster came out and more or less gotten his ass. And Corey Henson was kind of wanting to play that, just, establish a little reach and try to be a little too polished for the circumstance, if you will. And ended up taking a nice right hand right along the ear, right above the ear, around the equilibrium there, knocked him down, and he wasn't able to recover in time before the referee, Luke Wilson, stepped in. 12-second knockout for Mr. Corey Brewster, who looked good in minimal amount of time. I'd like to see more, out of him before the jury's out still, I think, to see before we figure out exactly what the ceiling is here. But seemed like certainly a good prospect. Corey Henson, I said he'll be back. We will see if next time he can show a little bit more urgency out there and not just be so reactive to what the other guy is doing. Jeff, we'll get your take on this one. 12 seconds. At that moment in time, an Aries record.
We were trying to look. We were pulling up our spreadsheets and trying to watch the fight and do announcements and look it up at the same time. And no sooner than we could verify it, well, we'll tell you here in a second what happens. But as always, man, there's just not a lot to tell here about the fight itself, except where things may have went wrong. And like you said, for Corey, I think he's worked so hard to get where he's at right now, his weight loss journey, his journey into the sport. I think you said it perfectly. He wanted to look polished and show off what he has learned, show off what the tools his coaches have given him. And he thought this was going to be, in his head, I think he pictured a UFC style fight where you have two very highly decorated and skilled who feel each other out and let the fight develop and wait for your openings. And that's not what's going to happen when you have a guy, like you said, amateur debut or just one fight. It's balls to the wall.
Yeah.
It's let's throw shit on the wall, the kitchen sink, and let's see what happens. And let's just try to swarm this guy and end it, and that's just the way amateur fights are in the beginning. You don't have a feeling out process. And that's what I think Corey thought was going to happen. I think that was what he was hoping was going to happen. And Mr. Brewster, with just one fight under his belt, he knew what the game was. And he swarmed him, and that's all it takes. One to the dome sometimes. But Henson was not. He wasn't out of it. He was definitely stunned. I think more than anything, he was just completely disappointed in himself. He wasn't nothing to be embarrassed about, and he was not embarrassed. I think he was just disappointed that it happened the way it did.
Talking to Greg Ring afterward, he said that they didn't get the training that they had hoped to out of Corey Brewster, so they couldn't really verify per se that he had the gas tank and the conditioning to go out there and fight that kind of measured 3-round fight. So, the instructions were, hey, let's go out there. Let's see if we can't put some heat on him early and just get him on out of here so we don't have to swim in those deeper waters that we're not for sure that we can swim in just yet. So, props to Corey Brewster. For the moment, a record holder until this next fight. We get into bout number 10. It was a 160-pound catchweight bout. Isaiah Martin, shall we say, out of Ashboro School of Martial Arts. First time hosting him. He came in at 1-1. His fight's coming on the Titans of the Cage promotion. He got the knockout over Ring Combat's Luke Kinser, who came in at 2-0 here, and one would imagine was a slight favorite on paper, but it isn't always how things work out in the cage. These guys actually both. There's a knockout in 10 seconds here. I should say Zayn Martin takes the new Aries knockout record, a 10-second knockout, and it was just a perfectly placed, accurate punch that was just right on the button. It dropped Luke Kinser, and that was it. I don't know if that's how this fight plays out, if they fight 10 times, but I know that the accuracy on Martin was very, very impressive. Another very good guy to work with. I hadn't gotten to work with him before, but I think we'd love to have him back soon. Like, that fight only got 10 seconds in. He's easily able to make that 155 pounds, which is a division that we've got a lot of talent in. I'd like to see Zayn Martin back in there quick, maybe July even, and get in the mix now that he's 2-1 at 155. Dylan, your take on this one? What are the odds? You have 2 record knockouts, literally back to back.
Yeah, the 2 fights, the last 2 that we're recapping here, lasted a combined 22 seconds. Yeah. So that was pretty insane to call back-to-back fights like that. As far as the Luke Kinser Zayn Martin fight goes, I didn't know a ton about either. I'd been able to do a little research. I thought Luke Kinser looked the part of an undefeated fighter at 2-0. The guy looks, he's in great shape. He looked like he was going to really be a problem. But Zayn Martin has so much length. That's the thing that strikes me about him. And Luke Kinser found himself at the business end of all of that length. And it was really one of the more devastating knockouts I've seen here in Aries, because it was one of those where I believe Luke Kinser's leg got caught up underneath him there, kind of shades of when Francis Ngannou knocked out Stipe in their second fight to win the heavyweight title, when he kind of fell back and sprung up and might have injured his knee. So hopefully Luke Kinser's okay. But congratulations to Zayn Martin. You now are an Aries Fight Series record holder for fastest knockout in Aries history. So, get him back in July. I can't wait to see the guy fight again. It's awesome.
10 seconds is going to be hard to beat, man. Somebody's going to have to go out, just march across the cage and one hitter quitter someone to beat 10 seconds. It's going to be tough. Let's see. Feature bout. 125-pound number 1 contender bout with vicious Vincent Van Alstyne awaiting the winner. It was Quentin Sims, little Q out of Agogi, taking on George Calzada out of Outlook MMA, who at this point Outlook's on roll, and they're 2-0 going into this fight. And on paper, I think with the grappling accolades that Calzada had, winning multiple grappling tournaments, purple belt, higher ranked guy, Q Sims, a white belt there at Agogi. I think Calzada was probably a slight favorite on paper, but again, that's why they fight the fights. It was Calzada getting the takedown, got his head stuck in the guillotine. Q not able to finish it from there, but he finally was able to sweep and then get a mounted guillotine, and that is when the tap comes. 59 seconds in, just under a minute of the first round. Q Sims, now our second number 1 contender at 125 pounds. He gets the first round submission and moves on to that title fight. And man, it's one of those fights where, I'm not trying to play favorites or anything, but Q's a guy that he kind of helps us, on some of the cage duties and setups and stuff. A little bit of his background and some of his struggles to see him come through and get a submission of all things. A feel-good moment, Jeff.
Yeah, like I said, it's not our place to it's just not the business we're in of playing favorites. Things happen the way they happen. But there are situations that arise where you recognize and know the hard work that a kid puts in. And Q, up to this point, I think he would agree, his coaches would agree, just kind of fly by the seat of his pants, flighty type of kid who doesn't really, he doesn't come off as somebody who takes a lot of things real serious in life, period. Maybe could always be accused of not putting in enough work.
Right.
But here recently, over the last few months, doing our check-ins on guys and seeing how camps are going and things like that, we started really hearing a lot about his dedication and how much he was putting in the time and the work in the gym, how he kind of turned that corner and started taking this a little more serious than he, had in the past. And so when you hear those kind of things, and then like you were saying, Tim, there are situations where we hire hands for help, and Q's always been there, and sometimes we had to follow behind Q because hey, I'm paying you to do a job, and you're getting off on a tangent and you're not focused. But we even noticed from our end, I mean, he was more serious about his work and the job that he was hired to do sometimes. So you started just noticing all these things. So it felt good just in the sense that you saw someone's hard work pay off regardless of who they are. Just that you saw their hard work paid off. As far as the bout itself, I think we both knew that just based on doing the little bit of history we did on Calzada, we knew that he was probably going to come in and try to take this to the ground. And if Calzada and his crew at Outlook did any kind of research whatsoever, they would have seen, where Q had faults in the past, in the grappling exchanges and on the ground and getting submitted and things like that. So Calzada comes in. Q has that little just, half-ass attempt at a guillotine that was never there. It was never going to be there. And at that point, you and I, and even I think some guys to the right of me, were just talking like, at his corner was let it go. It's like one of those amateur moves where, you as a fighter, you don't want to let it go because you're like, no, this is what's keeping him from punching me in the face. I can't. My mind will not let me let this go. But the right move was to let the damn thing go so you don't burn your arms out. But he stuck with it long enough to just find that small moment in time to use his muscle and sweep the kid. And then it really was like, okay, now I'm in a position I can get this. And he did with that mounted guillotine and with a little bit of crank there on it. And so hats off to Q Sims with tenacity of sticking with something and at least knowing that, or finding his opening to turn nothing into something. I could be wrong, but I do believe that he got that mushroom man that one up and got that blue belt from his submission from his team after that. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Calzada came in with a purple belt. So Quentin Sims coaches felt that the work was put in and the growth was there, and for him getting a submission, I think he got a new belt color out of the whole deal. As always, it's hard talking to Quentin after the show because you don't know what's going to come out of the kid's mouth, but he's cleaned that up a little bit too. He's still confident as all get out. I'm excited. That'll be a heck of a little match, man. We saw Van Alstyne that last time out against Bryce Warner, who Warner looked fucking good in that fight, man. And he had Vincent in a bad spot, but Vincent did the same thing that Q did. He took a bad situation and he found a way to turn it good. So this could be an interesting clash of style and personality, even a clash of personality when those two meet. So I don't know. I'm excited. What are, I don't know, Tim, if you even want to give it up. When are you thinking on this one, man?
I originally had thought about putting it in August, but now I believe I'm going to try to shovel it on into the July 8th card. I think that would be
a nice little addition.
Underneath our other title fight that we're going to announce here very soon. You may have figured it out if you've seen the posters, but that is what I think we will do is move it on to July, give that card a little depth. And I'm excited for that one. Dylan, I'll get your take on this one real quick before we hit these last two. How do you see this? Well, any thoughts on this fight, and then how do you see a Vincent Van Alstyne versus Q Sims about going down?
Well, this fight to call, it was crazy because what Jeff just said is exactly what we said on commentary. After that takedown from George Calzada, I had commented that I actually thought that it was a foolhardy attempt, and that was my verbatim quote. I said, this is a foolhardy attempt holding a guillotine when he just needs to try and find a way back to, get to his feet and get to a better distance for himself. But Q showed great strength, and he is actually very strong. I saw him at the end of the night. I went to shake his hand, and he picked me up with just a massive bear hug and trapped my arms against my body, and I could not get him off of me. But he's got a great personality, and when he won, I noticed he started cranking on the mounted guillotine, and I saw Calzada's face start to turn. You saw that the blood had basically been trapped, and what a moment. I really did not see that coming. Sometimes you see it coming. There's a fight, the main event, you could kind of sense the big strike was coming. In this fight, I did not see this result coming at all, especially with the credentials that Calzada had, having the title in Florida, winning the jiu-jitsu contest, being the purple belt. So I was stunned when this guillotine was the result. As far as the Vincent versus Q matchup now, and you're telling me it's going to be on July, I'm thinking, I got to be there to see it. But I don't know how it's going to play out. I was so caught off guard by Q with these abilities here to get these submissions, and Vicious Vincent was able to pull it out of the fire against Bryce. I mean, this division is just awesome, and I'm so stoked to see all these fights that unfold over the coming months. So no predictions from me as far as that one goes, but I'm definitely going to be there to call it, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Co-main event, this was kind of the fight that I had pegged as our fight of the night potential here. It was Joseph Hishma of Shield Systems coming in undefeated at 2-0 to take on his toughest challenge to date in Spencer Brandon out of Outlook MMA. This fight, it was very much your technician versus your just wild man, shit-eating wild man that does not stop coming at you and stays, absolutely dangerous the entire time. However, the technique of Hishma able to get the better of the physicality, if you will, of Spencer Brandon, 30-27, unanimous decision across all three cards. I think that I was okay with that. I thought that Spencer maybe kind of started coming on a little bit later in the fight when Hishma was starting to breathe a little bit heavier and not able to just get the takedown so easily. But still, all three rounds, I got to go with Joseph Hishma. Moves to 3-0, and now I feel like Hishma, with a vacant 145 title out there, has got to have inserted himself in the mix for some talks there at that 145. Some names that come to mind to me right off, as maybe one more before, like a contender type fight, a Tristan Kelly fight. I think with Joseph Hishma would be a lot of fun, a lot of scrambles, a lot of both guys very skilled, technical guys. So, Spencer Brandon drops to 2-3, a very dangerous 2-3. He's a guy that you're going to have to kill him to get him out of there. Nobody finishes the dude. So definitely still lots of good, entertaining fights out there for Spencer Brandon. And I'd like to see him maybe as part of that fair show coming up that we'll talk a bit more in September as well. Jeff, your take on the co-main?
Yeah, man, just continue to be impressed with Joseph Hishma. Every time I think that maybe he's, I don't want to say stepping out too far, but I don't know. I mean, it's just what it felt like with this one. Like, okay, Spencer Brandon's a machine. He's an animal, and Joseph hasn't had that yet. And it's hard to explain for me. It's not that I doubt Joseph Hishma. It's just, you think you know who he is, and you think he's one thing, and he's really good at that one thing. When he made the transition from kickboxing to MMA, you're like, well, he's really good at kickboxing, but is he going to handle the MMA? Is he going to handle the grappling? And then he answers that call, and he does. And then he's stepped up competition every time.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, well, this might be the one where it catches up. And it's just, he impresses you every time with something new. And in this fight, the story was, how's he going to react with someone in his face, someone who just comes one direction only, and that's forward. And what does he do? As soon as the bell, sounds, he dips in for the takedown, single leg, gets the same to the ground, and you're like, what the hell? What did we just happen? And then shows off these wrestling chops. Was real heavy on top, kept him down. Getting his hooks in and trying his damnedest for that submission. but not ever really losing position. And again, just impresses you every time with the growth and the knowledge that he's got at such a young age. Um, I mean, how do you not at this point at 3-0 think that he couldn't, fight for an amateur title next? I mean, the kid's got talent. He was definitely gassed after this fight, though. The post-fight interview was hard to get through because he had to walk off, for a second. He had to come back and put some weight on me for a second. He couldn't get his words out. So I think I think the pace of the fight and how much he had to exert to keep his game plan, happening, was evident after the fight. But Spencer Brandon, as always, he was a dangerous 2-2, and now he's a more dangerous 2-3 for the next guy who accepts a fight with him and thinks that his record is who he is. Shame on that person if they don't do their damn homework. And I do like your idea. Joseph Brandon would be great for this September shit we got brewing right now. Also in Nashville, Nashville's going to have a little bit of us back to back. It seems could be.
Well, he fights that style that fairgrounds crowd's gonna.
They're going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for. But man, Hishma, I love the kid to death, man. He puts in the work. I can't wait to see what's next.
Dylan.
Yeah, Spencer Brandon was a tough test, and if you saw his last fight, which I did, I went back and watched it there against Perry. You saw just what a warrior the man is. But, it's another feather in the cap for Joseph Ishma. He showed layers to his progression, undefeated. And I got to talk to him briefly after he was victorious, and we were things had winded down and the event was finishing up. And he's just cool as a cucumber. I don't think that he's going to find himself in the spot that's too big for him. I definitely think he's on the road to title contention. So they're gonna be watching for him. I can't wait to see who he gets matched up with. He's shown the striking, he's shown the grappling, and he's got great composure. So that's a championship recipe. So let's see what happens.
Main event, guys. Last one to go through here. It was a lightweight contender bout as Justin Jamar, the sniper, and Daniel Gonzalez met, both off of losses to Craig French. And Justin, the sniper Jamar, gets the win and moves his record to a very impressive 7-2 now, with a first round knockout over Daniel Gonzalez. A little bit more measured approach here from Justin Jamar. Well, after watching him fight Craig, we can't say that we haven't seen him use a measured approach now. But, he didn't just swarm Daniel as, some people thought maybe he would just go out there and try to knock Daniel out in the first 20, 30 seconds. He respected Daniel's grappling, didn't want to get caught with anything crazy, maybe getting a kick caught and having to go to the ground earlier than he wanted. Just kept snapping that jab out like a sniper does, and eventually found the home with a nice 1-2 that put Daniel on out. And now Jamar with that momentum back at 7-2. Maybe we'll get to see him on that amped card, folks. Stay tuned. We're talking to him about getting Justin on that card. I think he has a style and just that a card like that with a crowd like we're going to have and the audience that we know we're going to have on pay-per-view. I think it's good for that kid to be seen on that card personally. So Daniel Gonzalez drops to 3-3 now, back to 500. Didn't seem too discouraged afterward. Daniel told me after the fight that he's going to get right back in there. He wants on our July 8th card. He wants to get back in there and fight in July. So maybe there's a lightweight bout that makes sense for him at the Joe next month. And, I think we'll continue to see improvement from Daniel because, coming off Daniel started at 0-1, won 3 fights in a row to get to 3-1. Now it's dropped 2 in a row against very tough competition. Had his opportunities to kind of get into that title scene, had a main event. A lot of lesser men would probably call that good, I think. And you would see some guys maybe just be like, "Meh, I made my run. This just isn't for me." Daniel said he'll be back next month. Get a take from both you guys. We'll wrap this bad boy up. Dylan, you go first.
No slight to Daniel Gonzalez and the fact that he's saying he's going to get right back in there. Just shows his heart, and nobody is really going to have a ton of success if you have to stand with Justin Jamar. He's going to do that to just about anybody. It just goes to show you how much of a skilled competitor Craig French is, because he went in there and fought with him for 4 rounds and didn't get dropped to the point where he was knocked out and found a way to get a win with a submission. Daniel just couldn't get his game plan going. In the first round, there was a minute where there was a low blow. And on commentary, I thought to myself that this is actually good for Daniel, because he's going to get a second to regroup, focus on what he needs to do in this fight, and he's probably going to come out and blast a takedown right here. This is where he's got to do it. It didn't happen, and there's reasons it didn't happen. Justin Jamar's got great footwork, and what did happen was we saw a very fast 1-2, and Justin Jamar's got one of the fastest 1-2s of just about anybody on our roster. So I know that Justin Jamar had said he's going to take some time off, but I'm very happy to hear that he's considering being on the Nashville card. That would be awesome exposure for him. I can't wait to find out what that fight is. And all in all, it was a great main event, a great showcase for Justin Jamar, and really put a stamp on a great night that saw a lot of quick finishes. It was an appropriate way for us to end Aries Fight Series 8.
Jeff, final take.
Yeah, I mean, nickname was correct. He sniped all night, man. They were precise. No, what do you want to call it? Just no wasted movement from Justin Jamar. Everything was purposeful and for a reason. And you can tell, again, I just don't think Justin Jamar gets the credit out there for being as smart a fighter as he is. He's that he did his homework, and he looked back at that Craig French and Daniel Gonzalez fight, and he saw what was successful, and that was just that popping that jab, just hitting square in the nose, and just letting that build up, and letting the repetitiveness of a jab and a 1-2 just build up, and let the damage build up until it's just too much, and one just is going to drop you. So he did his homework. I don't think it was hesitation because of coming off a loss. I think it was still just it was calculated game plan from Justin Jamar. Daniel Gonzalez is tough as nails. I'm glad to hear that he's going to be back, but I think you just got to focus on the other side of this story, and that's Justin Jamar now 7-2, bouncing back from a tough loss, but a great fight that ended with a tough loss. I'm in the majority, but I'm also in the minority. Probably I'm in the majority that wants Justin Jamar to fight again, fight in Nashville on Amped. But I may be in the minority though that thinks and feels, at 7-2 and 9 amateur fights nowadays, that's a lot of amateur fights right now.
It is,
and it starts
You're
to get
right.
to that, it starts to get to that number where it's hard to find opponents that will get in there with a 7-2 guy with 9 amateur fights. And so the next thing has got to be big. But you're in a career where as an amateur, there ain't nothing but outgoing funds going out, and there ain't nothing coming in. That I may be in the minority. I don't know, but I think now might be the time that if Justin Jamar wants on that amp card, it might be time to start getting paid to fight. And get back to that 0-0 and start a career where you got some income. Because like most fighters, Justin's a great guy to talk to, and he says, it gets hard paying the bills sometimes. Doing this for free, and maybe this is the time, man. Maybe that's even more of a spotlight for Justin Jamar, maybe to get on that amped card as an 0-0 pro and start getting paid to put in this work and help it pay some bills. So that's just
I don't hate that idea. I really don't hate that idea. He's a guy that I think with, if he's making some money doing this and he can start to expand his, his ability to get out and get a little bit more, cross training in, things like that, where it doesn't just kill him to make these travels and whatnot. He has kind of that untouched potential still. There's another level to tap there. I feel like
absolutely,
this kid could be even better than what we're seeing. So it's something we'll have to talk with old Justin. See what comes of it. No matter what, I'm definitely a fan of this kid. I have been for a couple of years now, and it's nice to see him beginning to flourish, to blossom, if you will.
Yes.
All right. That's it, guys. That was Aries 8. We appreciate y'all sitting in on this recap. Stay tuned to the channel. We're going to be dropping these fights starting, I'm guessing, Tuesday probably. We'll have all the fights up here on the channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Let us know in the comment section below if you agreed with the decisions on Aries 8, or if they got them wrong, or or they got them right for that matter. We will be back Wednesday with, I'm guessing it'll be Wednesday. We'll have our betting preview for Aries 9 with Cody Saftik joining us. We'll have the odds for that. And then we've got the full-on roundtable preview coming up for Aries 9. Jeff, are we going to do that like we did last time? Like a roundtable type deal? Or
I liked it. I liked it last
too.
time.
So let's watch for our Friday evening after weigh-ins. We'll do a full card breakdown. And then this week, I'm sure we'll get some interviews out to you guys as well. Jeff, Dylan, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks you guys out there for the time. We went over by about 6 minutes. Not too bad. We'll see you guys next time on the 0 Hour.
All right. Peace, guys.
All right. See ya.